What I really would like to talk about is some of the issues that you may face in a project of this size when it comes to the equipment that you're going to need and how you're going to deploy it, and the issue of that somebody's already mentioned is how you're going to staff up for something like this. And I'm not an engineer. I don't even have a college degree, but I've had a lot of experience with some of the issues that you're going to face as you approach this project materially. And one of those things, when you're talking about the size of the boreholes that you're going to have to make this project, are huge, and they're scaled up at least 30% more than anything that's been done so far, perhaps more. And I don't know if how much you're aware of the problems that already face this kind of large bore projects. But if you just ask the people in Seattle that are right now, they're trying to bore a big, actually a wastewater tunnel, and the machine that they're using there is broken down so many times that they don't know. I mean, it's been a very difficult issue. So when you're talking about scaling up another 30 or 40%, the engineers are going to have to get their heads together very carefully about how you do that, because the scaling up the size won't simply scale up the problems 30 or 40%, more like 400% or something on the order. It'll be a exponential problem, I'm sure. So so if you've got a big drill face that's 3 feet thick, just making it 9 inches thicker for a 100-foot tunnel probably isn't going to solve all your problems. So these are things that the engineers need to grapple with. Also, how you get the rubble out of the tunnels, and how you get equipment in there. It may take a whole redesign of a boring machine rather than just scaling up. So those are things you need to think about. The other thing is the staffing issue, and right now we're not turning out enough skilled craftsmen in the machine trade to do the job, and there are several reasons why. And I'm an automotive mechanic, so I could address some of those issues from my own perspective. When in my own trade, it takes a good 5 years of apprenticeship just to understand the trade thoroughly, and in that time, an apprentice has to be able to accrue $35,000 to $45,000 worth of hand tools. That's not an inconsiderable requirement when you consider the fact that the same individual can go repair computers, earning pretty much the same wage, work in a cleaner environment, and only needs $700–800 worth of tools. So there's some issues that need to be addressed about those kinds of things. Employers may need to learn, may need to accept the fact that they have to absorb some of those costs. The other thing is training people, finding somebody that's willing to put the time in and invest that kind of. Usually, you can find somebody that's willing to put in 4 or 5 years of college, but an apprenticeship is an entirely different thing. It's a different style of learning. It's actually a better style of learning, and produces a much more viable and well-trained individual. But it's not easy, and it's not even easy to qualify to be in apprenticeship. I just have to tell you that I think our companies, our manufacturers in this country, have failed to put enough money into training. They leave it up to the government, and then everybody wants to cut taxes, so that leaves your government programs weak. And at the same time, they haven't put enough of their own time and effort and money into promoting training. Part of that has been, the unions are highly promote apprenticeship, and part of that, I think part of the reason the manufacturers aren't doing more of that is the antipathy that there are between the organized labor groups and the company. So something that something that I was thinking of as I was driving over here today is one of the things we do, the unions have done since the early 90s, is to obtain grants. So the original ones were grants from the EPA to train workers in recognizing chemical hazards, workplace chemical hazards. It's been very effective, and the Department of Energy got in the act in the early 90s and began providing grants for workers at the federal sites. And I was one of the early proponents. If you go out to the Hammer facility out here, you look there, you'll see my photograph on the wall, because I was one of the early proponents for that, and helped lobby for those grants, for the money to establish that Hammer facility and to provide money for the grants. You could have a similar grant process for the unions to establish. Some unions have a regular training program. The electricians and the pipe fitters have very effective training programs, but something in the machine tool trades would require a lot more investment. I don't know what you know how much some of the latest tool machines cost, but they're wonderful. They do wonderful things, but they are very expensive. And you take a machine that's computer controlled, that can manufacture a series of different shapes and sizes without having to have the operator interfere with it, and it even knows when the tool bit's getting dull and can go get another one. You know that machine was not constructed inexpensively, and but I would suggest that a possibility is to have government grants that perhaps some of the big corporations' taxes could fund, that would provide the kind of training that you need. You'd have a similar kind of training to apprenticeship where you get hands-on training and an experienced journeyman around to make sure that training is effective. Those are some of my ideas, and just food for thought. But these are things that, that's where I find these suggestions tend to bear fruit the best, is in groups that are interested in doing things like that. So that's it. Any questions? Sir?
They used to have a thing called Junior Achievement that used to do some of the same kinds of things in the program. Whatever happened to that? Is it still out there?
It's still out there, but it's very poorly supported right now, and that's part of it. It's poorly supported, and quite frankly, what I think is we need a consolidation of those efforts. If we're going to, so many of those are eaten up by administrative costs until there isn't anything left to do the work, and I think we need a consolidation of those kinds of efforts to where you can actually, you reduce the administrative cost and get the money out there where it's needed. And and there are people like me who would, and there are a lot of us out there. We're retired. Some of us are we're not sumptuously retired, but adequately, and we may be the last generation that is, if things keep going the way they are. But there are many of us who would be willing to volunteer. I volunteer all the time for these kinds of things. So, who would be glad to volunteer to put some of these things over the top and reduce some of the costs.
I have a little experience in machine tools, nothing like Keith, but he's bang on. If you double the size of a drill, your issues go up exponentially. They become 4 times more complex, 4 times more torque. Your basic fan curve. Everything increases exponentially, and your problems do too. Machines are expensive. A 6-axis Mazak CNC is what, $1 million?
Yep.
Yeah. That is a very skilled position. I have a soft spot in my heart for machinists. I could tell you lots of stories, and you could too. My forte is in construction management and usually large industrial projects all over the world. Been in China 4 times, and Alaska to Mexico. And generally, I've worked with construction craft. These are card-carrying union members, and they're skilled journeymen, and I'm very partial to construction craft. But recognizing that not everybody's a journeyman, and we're going to have to bring more people along, and I commend you for what you're doing. Typically, in the construction craft business, you can have agreements with whatever bargaining unit it is, let's say millwrights or ironworkers or something, that for every 4 or 5 journeymen you have on the job, you can bring in an apprentice. And the apprentices are various steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, and their pay varies according to the grade of the apprentice. And we would encourage that rather than being an Xbox couch potato for a lot of these people to become an apprentice. And these are high-paying jobs. If you're a journeyman electrician, journeyman machinist, ironworker, millwright, these are good jobs. They're better than being a greeter at Walmart, for example.
Well, they pay more than some college degree positions.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, prevailing wage is well over $30 for all of those.
Yeah, and it's been my experience with construction craft is these guys want to show off. Their idea of a real good time is how many wires they can terminate in a day, and how much concrete they can pour, and how much steel they can erect, and they're proud of it. They're proud of their work, and they want to walk tall. The ironworkers I used to have, they're crazy. Work hard, play hard. I'd go bail them out from the jail at night and go erect some more steel in the day. Good guys, though. They'd kill for me. But back to machinists. I used to be a plant engineer in a large mill, and we had a 64-man maintenance crew, of which 13 people were machinists. And the best machinist we had, old Bill Sloan, he was 65 years old, had Parkinson's disease, and he was going like this all the time. And whenever we had something that had to be machined in tenths, we'd give it to Bill, and he'd take whatever it was, and he'd take his mic and he'd go.
Yep.
I could tell you lots of stories, but anyway, you're absolutely right. Were those drills done by Bill Nicholson up in Seattle? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good guy. I presume he'll fix it all right.
Yep. Hope so.